he's like this billionaire in his 20s, and Anna managed to befriend herself with him and convinces him to join her on a trip to Venice. And on this trip to Venice, Anna would start having troubles with her credit cards because her credit cards wouldn't work overseas. And thus she convinced Michael Sifu Huang to pay for basically all her expenses, but she guaranteed him that she would pay him back once she would be back in, well, probably in New York. Back to a new true crime video. My name is Mara and welcome to my channel, Mara Cuja. In case you haven't done so already, please make sure to like, share and especially subscribe to my channel for more future content like this. Also, don't forget to turn on the little notification bell in order to not miss out on any future videos like this. That being said, I would suggest to start, as always, right with the video. Today, I am going to tell you about the insane story of a fake German heiress. He scammed the elite of New York out of their money. In total, she scammed them out of $275,000. This is the story of Anna Serokin, aka Anna Delvey. It all started in 1991 because this is when Anna Serokin would be born in Russia, close to Moscow. In 2007, Anna Serokin moved together with her parents and her siblings to Eschweiler, which is a small town in Germany close to Cologne. Her classmates would describe her as this shy, timid girl. In 2011, so after she managed to graduate from high school, she was accepted at the Central St. Martin's School, which is a very prestigious art school in London, but she would drop out for unknown reasons shortly thereafter. In 2012, Anna Serokin would move to Berlin, where she managed to get an internship at a PR firm. This internship at the PR firm in Berlin helped her to get another internship the following year in 2013 in Paris, but I stay at the Purple's magazine in Paris. And during her time in Paris, she started to call herself Anna Delvey. So she kind of changed her name. She got her alias name. Anna Serokin became Anna Delvey. And she would start to get befriended with very influential people like the founder of the Purple's magazine himself. She attended these really, really fancy parties. She even attended the Paris Fashion Week, so she was part of the high society of Paris from one day to the other. And this shows us how she was really like sociable and probably also likable. And she managed to get into contact with really important people. Still, she did not earn a lot at her internship at the Purple's magazine or also at her internship in Berlin at the PR firm prior to this. That's why her parents actually supported her financially. And her parents are not these billionaires. Like her father is a truck driver in Germany and her mother owns a small convenience store. So they are pretty average people when it comes to their financial backgrounds. So Anna Serokin became Anna Delvey, and Anna Delvey had these billionaire parents, and Anna Delvey seemingly also was a trust fund baby. She explained anyone who would listen to her that she had this immense trust fund of about 60 million euros in Swiss bank accounts. In 2013, she fooled Billy McFarland to invite her to one of his parties. And in case you don't know Billy McFarland, he was responsible for the Fire Festival fraud, which is also very interesting. And he had this McNeese house, and Anna Delvey would stay at this McNeese clubhouse for 4 months, and she refused to leave. So in the end, she would finally leave after staying there for 4 months. She was only supposed to stay there for a couple of days, but she just refused to leave, and they didn't want to be rude to her. So she would appear in Miami in the Soho house, where she would stay for free, basically, again. At the end of 2015, she would break up with her long-term boyfriend, with whom she was together for about 2 years. It would be June 2014 when Anna Delvey would finally appear in New York City. So Anna decided to stay in New York City and lived a high life there. She would pretend to be a German heiress with an immense trust fund of about 60 million euros. But she would only be able to get to the money of her trust fund, to get into her trust fund, when she would turn 25. Anna told anyone who would listen to her that she wanted to use her trust fund money and an additional bank loan to buy the historic church mission house in New York, who was owned by Rosen, who is also the owner of the luxurious hotel the 11 Howard. And this hotel would be where Anna Delvey chose to stay during her time in New York. And at the very beginning, they of course asked her for a credit card, but Anna never used credit cards. She always used cash. The 11 Howard was a luxurious hotel, but it was also a rather new hotel. And since it was new, and since Anna wanted to get into a large business with the hotel owner Rosen, she managed to convince the hotel to not ask for her credit card information, which is pretty much unheard of, but she managed to convince them to accept wire transfer. And she would stay at a room at his hotel, at his luxury hotel, which would cost her about $400 a night. Because she had visa issues, she would have to leave the United States and re-enter the United States on a regular basis. And she managed to also get in contact during a fancy event with the Chinese billionaire, with the Chinese billionaire Michael Sifu Huang, who is the owner of the Pace Gallery in China. And he's really young and really well known, seemingly, in the high society. And he's like this billionaire in his 20s. And Anna managed to befriend herself with him and convinces him to join her on a trip to Venice. And on this trip to Venice, Anna would start having troubles with her credit cards because her credit cards wouldn't work overseas. And thus she convinced Michael Sifu Huang to pay for basically all her expenses. But she guaranteed him that she would pay him back once she would be back in, well, probably in New York. And she never paid him back. But he would forget about it because he's a billionaire and Anna Delvey is this really wealthy German heiress, and she probably just forgot about it, and so he forgot about it. And in the end, he would decide to just let it be. In 2016, better say in June 2016, Anna started to push forward her newest project. And this project was huge. She wanted to buy the historic church mission house in New York in order to found the Anna Delvey Foundation, the ADF. And this should have been something like the Soho House. So it should have been a members only club, a very exclusive, very luxurious members only club where there would be a fancy restaurant in it, there would be a nightclub in it, there would be a bar in it, and of course also an art gallery, because Anna always stated that she was so interested into arts and she wanted to use her trust fund, remember her impressive 60 million euros trust fund, to build up an art gallery. So in June 2016, she was getting into contact with architects and also with designers because they should help her to create her Anna Delvey Foundation. And she would promise to pay them, but she wasn't able to pay them by now because, again, she was not 25 and she would only be able to get into her trust fund at the age of 25. And she was also telling them that she wanted to get a loan from a local bank, from the Citibank, let us say, so that she would be able to just pay them. And they agreed that they would work for her and that she could pay them basically later on. And while she was planning to open her Anna Delvey Foundation in the historic church mission house in New York, she stayed at the 11 Howard again. And the entire project, the entire Anna Delvey Foundation, was estimated to cost $50 million. And allegedly Anna had like $25 million. Well, there are different sources. Some sources say she stated that she had about 60 million euros in her trust fund, and other sources say that she stated that she had like 25 million at her trust fund, so about half of it. And this is the reason why she decided that she needed a loan, and she would again get into contact with really important people with her now attorney Lance. And Lance would manage to get into contact on her name with Citibank, but also with Fortress Bank. And he wanted to help Anna to get a loan of a total of $22 million from Fortress Bank and from Citibank. If people would ask her where her money came from, she would state that her parents were wealthy Russian diplomats, or that her father was active in the oil business or in solar panel business or whatever. Or sometimes she would also tell people that her parents were wealthy antique collectors and resellers. Anna, as it turned out, it is not that easy to get a loan of $22 million from banks, and she did not want to have private investors from Silicon Valley, for instance, as she originally thought of to fund her project, because then she wouldn't be free, and she did not want to have other people deciding on what her Anna Delvey Foundation should be all about. She even faked a so-called Peter Hennecke, who should have been the head of her family office and who is responsible for her Swiss bank accounts and some UBS accounts. And this Peter Hennecke would get into contact with Fortress Bank and Citibank, and he would send them like fake documents that should show that she actually earned the money she claimed to own in her trust fund, which is really, really criminal. But later state that this Peter Hennecke just died. So when it all got more and more complicated and she realized that she wouldn't get through with her entire scam, she just made Peter Hennecke disappear and thought no one would ever ask about him again. And she even told people to not ask about him again because he's dead, and she did no longer want to talk about it, basically. And Citibank actually granted her a $100,000 loan. And she used these $100,000 in order to pay Fortress Bank her due diligence fees. Now Fortress Bank receives the money, and they want to send representatives to her Swiss banks, where she had her Swiss bank accounts and her trust fund. And this is when Anna Delvey decided that she was definitely not able to go through with this. And so she broke the deal, and she told Fortress Bank that she wants to have the money back they haven't spent on looking into her. And she took these $55,000 that were left in order for private expenses. So she went shopping, she traveled with this $55,000, and she tipped everyone again with her $100 bills. On January 13th, 2017, it was Anna's birthday party, and she decided to party at Sadelle's in Soho, which is extremely expensive, and she even had her own PR company who planned her birthday. And if you remember, I told you prior to this, I told you about Michael Sifu Huang, who was this billionaire owning the Pace Art Gallery in China, with whom she traveled to Venice with, and whom she owed quite a bit of money. He was also at this party, and Anna made a couple of photos and posted them on Instagram. But the PR company tried to get back to Anna because she did not pay them. And this is when they reached out to him, because they saw him in one of her Instagram posts. And this was the moment when this Chinese young billionaire, found out that Anna was not legit. And this was also the time during which she was getting in contact with a concierge at the 11 Harriet, whose name was Neff. And Neff would become one of her remaining friends, because from April 2017 on, her circle of friends was really decreasing. She only had Neff, the concierge at the 11 Harriet, left as a friend, and she would also become friends with a Vanity Fair photo editor called Rachel Williams, who would later on also write a book about her 2 months lasting friendship with Anna Delvey. It was also April of 2017 that Anna started to run out of money, because the money she still had from her Citibank fraud was basically gone, and she did not she hasn't paid her bill at the 11 Howard so far, because every time she tried to make a wire transfer, they did not receive the money, so they were getting suspicious of Anna as well. So she came up with a new business idea, and she would hand in bad checks at Citibank and was able to withdraw $70,000 from it. She would hand in about $160,000 of bad checks, but she would only manage to withdraw like about half of it, so $70,000, which is still a lot. And with this money, she would finally pay back the 11 Howard, but they were getting suspicious of her because she still refused to give them her credit card information, and she only gave them the money after they threatened to kick her out. On May 4th, 2017, Anna Delvey decided to attend a Warren Buffett shareholder meeting in Omaha, and she would actually rent a private jet just to fly to Omaha in order to make a good impression, to leave a good impression when being at this Warren Buffett meeting. And this private jet would cost her about $35,000. And this is insane because at this point in time, Anna basically had no money left. She was running out of money, and still she chose to pay for a private jet, which is crazy. And I'm not quite sure if she actually used the money she scammed out of Citibank by handing in these bad checks, so the remaining $35,000 or $40,000 after paying the hotel the 11 Howard, or if she actually never paid them, because I've heard that she never paid them, but it would make sense if she had paid them, kind of, but I don't know exactly. Still, while she was in Omaha at this Warren Buffett meeting, the hotel management of the 11 Howard decided that it was time for Anna to leave. So she now had to find a new hotel to stay in. But before she would go to a new hotel, she decided that it was time for her to leave the United States again, because again, her visa was no longer allowing her to stay in the United States. So she convinced her friend, the Vanity Fair photo editor, Rachel Williams, and her personal trainer, as well as a videographer, to travel with her to Morocco, because she wanted to make a documentary about the creation of the Anna Delvey Foundation. And while she was in Morocco, she decided that she wanted to stay in a very fancy villa, $7,000 a night. Really expensive, and it had a private butler and everything. It was like Khloe Kardashian style. And she would also not leave credit card information at the hotel. And as her personal trainer got sick and wanted to leave, the hotel staff got really annoyed by Anna because she refused to give them her credit card information, and the wire transfer was also unsuccessful. And finally, Anna would convince her friend Rachel Williams, who was making about 60 grand a year, to put down her credit card information, because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to leave. She now had to find a new hotel to stay in because the 11 Howard kicked her out officially. So she decided to go to the Beekman Hotel, which is also really, really fancy. And again, she refused to give down her credit card information. After 20 days of staying in the Beekman kicked Anna out because they did not have credit card information. And they started to get suspicious of her. And she was having like a bill of $11,500, which was unpaid, and they did not have credit card information after only staying there for 20 days. And so they kicked her out, but this time they also confiscated her stuff, her belongings, because she had these really expensive designer clothes. So Anna was now without her expensive designer clothes, and she was going to a new hotel, to the W Hotel. And the W Hotel took her in as a guest, but after 2 days where they did not get her credit card information, they kicked her out as well. Now Anna was basically homeless. She basically had nothing left of her belongings because the Beekman kept it in. And now the W Hotel as well as the Beekman Hotel, they filed or the press charges against Anna Serokin, or aka Anna Delvey. Anna was trying to seek shelter basically at her personal trainer, but she only allowed her to stay for one night, and the next day she kicked her out again. At this point in time, no one was believing Anna's stories anymore, because also the church mission house was sold to someone else, so everyone knew that Anna wouldn't be able to open up her art foundation, the Anna Delvey Foundation. And everyone started to figure out that Anna Delvey was not this wealthy German heiress. Anna started to hand in bad checks as well, this time at the Signature Bank, and she would manage to get out $8,200 from it. And she would take this money in order to leave for Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, she wanted to stay at a rehab center, that is, say at the rehab center, one of the most expensive and luxurious rehab centers in the United States. And while she stayed there at this rehab center, she was finally arrested. And she had to face charges of 6 counts of grand larceny and attempted grand larceny, and also theft of services. During her trial, Anna Delvey had a stylist who would tell her what to wear. She would only show up in expensive designer clothes, and her attorneys basically stated that she was not a criminal, she did not belong to jail, and she did not mean to scam anyone out of money. In the end, Anna Delvey was sent to prison. She's currently still in prison in New York, and she will be released in 4 to 12 years. So she will have to stay in prison for 4 to 12 years for the fraud and the damage she had done to other people and institutions. And she will also have to pay back about $200,000. And she will be deported to Germany. She will be deported to Germany after she will be released from prison. She was absolutely not sorry for what she'd done, and that she seemingly is still convinced that she is not guilty. She even refused to take a plea deal, which would have gotten her out of prison after just 1 year. I hope you will think twice about whom to trust in the future. Always go with your guts, and don't just trust people because they look as if they were reliable. Always go with your guts. If you have a bad feeling about someone, don't trust this person. It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the damage. Go with your guts. Let me know what you think about the entire Anna Delvey case in the comment section down below. I really hope to see you next time. Bye guys.